What's going on, people? It is officially day 2 of the NFL draft. Last night was, of course, round 1. With the 26th pick, the Dallas Cowboys took defensive tackle Mazi Smith out of University of Michigan. There were so many, like I said, I think I said yesterday, I said there were so many guys on the board that I honestly were never out of the picture because with the moves that the Cowboys made this offseason, like I said, trading for Stephon Gilmore from Indianapolis, like I said, re-signing Jonathan Hankins, that was a nice solid move. It kind of just shored up that the fact the Cowboys could literally just take best player available on their board, whoever was on their board. Whether we agree, whether we disagree, whatever, that doesn't really matter at this point because once they get drafted, they're on the team for the foreseeable future at least. So we have, like I said, defensive tackle Mazi Smith out of University of Michigan. About what, 6'3", 6'4", about 320, somewhere close to that. That's a big guy. When you watch the film, he's one of, I guess what you call like a people eater. He's gonna take up a lot of space. He's gonna fill in gaps. There were I've seen a lot of complaints just off of kind of people have an idea. Because when you watch him, if you're not paying attention close enough, sometimes you might think he's just, I saw the word lazy a lot last night. Lazy, which I don't believe. I don't think it's that. We also don't know Michigan's philosophies or what the coaches are exactly teaching because you'll watch a lot of plays when you're watching the film on him. He has a nice solid base. Now, because sometimes it seems like his delay of getting off the line is a little slow, but how much of that is what they're being taught? Because a lot of times in their when you have a guy that big, a lot of times you're meant to be there to just fill in space, to be that run stopper, to just knock in. It's pretty much be a big wall. So once he turns into that wall, that's going to open up things, like I said, for your Micah Parsons, the Micah Parsons of the world. That's going to open up things for your DeMarcus Lawrence. It's going to open up things for your Sam Williams in year 2. We're going to see what he has, what he can bring to the game. And also, like I said, we're forgetting the fact we re-signed Jonathan Hankins. So that's also, now he was essentially, before this move last night, was Jonathan Hankins you're going to be your sole main run stopper again. What happens? That's all fine until injuries happen. People get banged up all the time. It's a part of the NFL. It's the NFL. It's football. Football's a physical sport, of course. So you have guys like Jonathan Hankins. Once he gets banged up, you're kind of sitting there all of a sudden back to square one. You have your Oso Digizua. As much as I like him, I think he's a solid player. But he's undersized for what we're asking for. So you need a guy like a Mazi Smith that's going to go in there and essentially, like I said, just be your big brick wall. Set up other guys. Sometimes we just need somebody to just hold down the fort so that'll open up things for your Micah Parsons. We saw Micah Parsons essentially for the whole second half of the season last year. It was double team, double team, double team. Didn't think twice about it. Then you got a Jonathan Hankins. It allowed us to not have to be as worried about the run game. Now, we still had holes at points because you can't fix everything with one guy. That's why it's about building that line. That's why I was so big yesterday. Like I said prior to the draft, you want to work on those trenches. O-line, D-line, those are the big bodies. That's what's going to build your team. That's what's going to push you to the next level. Like I said, sometimes it's when you start getting later in the season. It's colder, it's a little chilly. Sometimes the games are just a little bit more intense. You need to build your team in the trenches. O-line, D-line. That's what's going to get you there because sometimes now defenses are getting a little tighter. Defense is getting a little more stout. O-lines are getting a little bit better because now you're playing a better team. And funny enough, last night, my first reaction to the pick, I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't upset about it. It was more of when you're watching guys, you have some of those guys that literally, first of all, let's be clear, everybody can turn into a superstar in the NFL. You never know. You can be a 5th round pick and turn into a star. It's the way that the league is. It's kind of a guessing game. It's a gambling game essentially. So when you have guys like a Nolan Smith on the board, when you see your guys like Zay Flowers, when you see your Joey Porter Juniors, of course nobody knows who's going to actually be the best out of these classes. You have to let that sit in for a couple years, but it's the upside, I guess. That's what a lot of people were. Because I was a big fan of Nolan Smith possibly being added to the team, but at the same time, once you sit back, take a breath, calm down, just think about it for a second. I can see the reason. It was, of course, it made a lot of sense. It wasn't like it was confusing. It wasn't a big surprise because again, Dan Quinn had already talked about he wanted to work on the trenches. Mike McCarthy already talked about he wanted to work on the trenches. That's where your bread is buttered, essentially. That's where everything is built. That's where it starts. So just taking time to think about it, and of course, then all of a sudden we get to sit and hear what Micah Parsons thinks. We get to sit and talk about. Hear what Jerry Jones, of course, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, Will McClay, the coaches, what these guys think about the pick, and the guys think about the direction that they want to go. And this is the off season, of course. We all gonna freak out a little bit because first of all, let's be clear, it's the Dallas Cowboys. You've been a fan of this team long enough, you know exactly things are up and down. You never know which way it's gonna go, so you have to use your temperament sometimes, just kind of take it down a notch. And then we'll think about it. So, of course, it's going to be a long offseason. We still have, a couple days left of the draft. We have a lot to look into, a lot to rack our brains about. One thing I needed last night to calm down, to, I guess, you know what, take everything in. Not overreact, just kind of take a chance to breathe and think about what the move actually was. And that was
the Dallas Cowboys select Mazi Smith.
Let's go, man! Let's go! Dang, Yo! Look at...
That's all I need. I don't know about anybody else, but if Micah can see at least what this move could mean for him, can mean for the rest of the defense, the second level, your linebackers, I take a chance to say we should at least wait it out and see exactly what happens. You know, training camp's gonna be the start of telling everything. Preseason, let him get his feet wet. Let him get into the training system. Let him get to work with NFL coaches. It's not the same level, of course. We already know that. So let him get around other guys like Micah Parsons. Let him get around a Tank Lawrence. Let him get around a Jonathan Hankins. Let him get around guys that have been here. You're gonna get around other guys. You're gonna get around the Jaron Curses. You're gonna get around guys, the veterans that are gonna tell you the right things. They're gonna teach you exactly. This is how you last in this league for this long. This is how you have to be hungry. You have to come out there ready to work. And I think he has those. I think he has the parts. Mike said Michigan is it's a very good program. We already know this. So he has guys. The first thing everyone wanted to go to, Taco Charlton, they have nothing to do with each other. I mean, let's be clear. To this day, that was still a move a lot of Cowboys fans are going to worry about just for the simple fact of who we passed up to pick him. But, you know, it's not going to be anything. I think that even they don't go together. Let's start here. Let's get that out of the picture. Michigan, there's no correlation other than that. This is going to be this player, it's going to be this player. Two entirely different players, two entirely different positions. So let's let him work. That's all it is. Let him work. He's going to make plays. I believe Dan Quinn is the good enough coach that we know, whether we saw him in Seattle, whether we saw him to an extent, certain areas in Atlanta, and we see him since he's come to the Dallas Cowboys. Dan Quinn is going to put players where they need to be. I mean, that's not even confusing at this point. We already know that. We expect it. But these guys have to come in ready to work. Like I said, I really believe he's going to come in ready. Let's let it work. Like I said, you have guys. You're going to have other voices in his ear. Because the one thing we can always say, just going back to the Green Bay Packers times, you had Mike McCarthy's teams. A lot of times they had a nice, solid grizzly bear in that middle a lot of times on those defenses. It might be different formation. You have 3-4, different play style. But a lot of times he believes in that big, hungry bear right in the middle of your defense because everyone knows that sets the tone for everything. So as long as we can get that settled in and let him get his feet wet first. Let him get settled into the NFL game. I think we'll be just fine, guys. Like I said before, it's day 2 of the draft. Of course, with second and third rounds, I believe. So there are so many guys left on the board. Like, once again, so many guys. What it allows you to do now is I'm big on still hitting the trenches. O-line today. For sure, second round. I don't think that's a position you want to sit and wait on. Guard, to be exact. I don't think you want to sit and wait around to see if you can get something later on because everyone knows that's where you build your teams. You have guys like a Steve Avila from TCU. You have another guy, Matthew Bergeron, out of Syracuse. You've heard names like that, especially Avila. You have names like that. We want to work on those trenches. We saw what Tyler Smith was. Last year, a lot of people believe was he going to be on the interior? Is he going to be on the outside with the tackle position? We don't know how this O-line is going to mesh because we don't know the health of guys. We don't know what Terrence Steele is exactly. We know we hope he'll get back to, but we don't know. You never know how many games Tyron Smith, as much as a lot of us love him around here, we never know how long he's going to be on the field for us, how many games he's going to give us in that season. So you're always having to move around. O-line is one of the rotations that you can't move around too many times because it's a chain. These guys have to work together. They have to work on be on one page. So and keep swapping out bodies, moving guys around. That's when you start to ask yourself some serious questions. Who can you count on? And I think you get a guy like a Steve Avila today. Possibly. Other teams, of course, are going to be looking at him, but you get a guy like that. That's somebody we feel like we can plug in. You have a Zach Martin on the other side. You have a Tyler Smith now. You might have a Tyron Smith. You're going to work that interior because that's what's going to help you in the run game. I think Mike McCarthy wants to be a completely different offense just in the way that we run our plays. Not even how they're run, but when they're run. Because you have a Tony Pollard. We don't know how long he's going to be with this team, but we know for this upcoming season he's going to be one of our horses. So we have to ride him. We have a guy also. I think, to me personally, I say once you get past that second round, I think we need to work on the trenches. Look at the trenches again, for sure. I don't see us getting out of second and third rounds without O-line help. But I will say this right now, one of my personal picks is Marvin Mims, wide receiver from Oklahoma. He literally, I believe, will be a perfect fit in this system. Again, we're talking about yards after catch. We're talking about in a CeeDee Lamb prototype, your Brandon Cooks type guys now. We want to get the ball in his hands. About 5'11", I think 6 feet will be pushing it, but maybe 5'11". But he is a yards after catch playmaker. Those are the guys I want us to look into, especially in that third round where you start getting. We'll see how the draft boards start working out. There are lots of guys. Like I said, we can get to your running backs. Me personally, I'm not a fan of drafting a running back too early in day two, just for the simple fact, I think you want to kind of wait and sit around to see where the running backs and receivers start to fall off the charts, because you have a Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee receiver. You still have a Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss receiver. You have a Jaden Reed. I think it's Jaden Reed. I believe it's Jaden Reed from Michigan State. You have guys that are going to be there. Potentially, because now, and then you get to the running back field. You have a Tyjae Spears out of Tulane. You have a Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA. You have a Zach Evans out of Ole Miss. You have a Kendre Miller. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Kendre Miller out of TCU. There are so many guys we're gonna be able to work on today. So, as always, I don't want to go too far, just for the simple fact this game can go all over the place today. So, as always, please subscribe. Please like, comment down below in the section. And let me know what you think. Who would you like to grab a hold of today in rounds 2, rounds 3, and maybe going forward? But just for sure, for today, let me know who you guys want to take a look at. And we'll see. We'll come back around here and figure out what exactly the direction of this team will be after today. I think we'll have a little bit clearer view. Like I said, there's still so many guys even going into day 3, but we'll talk about that later. Appreciate you guys. Day 2 again. We'll see how it goes. Let us know. Go Cowboys.